Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for joining in. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is the Pandavas retire timely, and we are going to be doing text 36 and 37 today. So I will start with text 36. Yada Mukundo Bhagavan Imam Mahim Jahu Swatana Saruniya Satkataha Tadahar eva prabhuta cheshta sam abhadra hetu kalir anvara tata. Word to word. Yada, when. Mukunda, Lord Vishnu. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Imam, this. Mahim, earth. Chahu, left. Swatanva, with his self-same body. Shanivan Kat Satkatha, hearing about him is worthwhile. Tada, at that time. Aha eva, from the very day. Aprati Buddha Cheshta, some of those whose minds are not sufficiently developed. Abhadra Hetu, cause of all ill fortunes. Kaliya Anna Avavartata, Kali fully manifested. Translation. When the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from the very day Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with a poor fund of knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The influence of Kali can be enforced upon those who are not fully developed in God consciousness. One can neutralize the effects of Kali by keeping oneself fully under the supreme care of the personality of Godhead. The age of Kali ensued just after the battle of Kurukshetra, but it could not exert its influence because of the presence of the Lord. The Lord, however, left this earthly planet in his own transcendental body, and as soon as he left, the symptoms of Kali Yuga, as were envisioned by Maharaj Yudhishthir prior to Arjuna's arrival from Dwarka, began to manifest, and Maharaja Yudhishthir rightly conjectured on the departure of the Lord from the earth, as he had already explained. The Lord left out sight, just as when the sun sets, it is out of our sight. Text 37. Would anybody like to read the text? Ritu Mataji, would you like to read the text?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat.
Dhanvat. Would you like to read the text or the purport of text 37?
Yeah, okay. It's the present age is influenced by the specific qualities of Kali. Since the days of the Battle of Kurukshetra about 5,000 years ago, the influence of the age of Kali began manifesting, and from authentic scriptures, it is learned that the age of Kali is still to run on for 4,27,000 years. And the symptoms of the Kali Yuga, as mentioned above, namely avarice, falsehood, diplomacy, cheating, nepotism, violence, and all such things are already in vogue, and no one can imagine what is going to happen gradually with further increase of the influence of Kali till the day of annihilation. We have already come to know that the influence of the age of Kali is meant for godless so-called civilized man. Those who are under the protection of the Lord have nothing to fear from this horrible age. Maharaja Yudhishthira was a great devotee of the Lord, and there was no necessity of his being afraid of the age of Kali. But he preferred to retire from active household life and prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas are eternal companions of the Lord, and therefore they are more interested in the company of the Lord than anything else. Besides that, being an idle king, Maharaja Yudhishthira wanted to retire just to set an example for others. As soon as there is some young fellow to look after the household affairs, one should at once retire from family life to uplift oneself to spiritual realization. One should not rot in the dark well of household life till one is dragged out by the will of Yamraja. Modern politicians should take lessons from Maharaja Yudhishthir about voluntary retirement from active life and should make room for the younger generation. Also, retired old gentlemen should take lessons from him and leave home for spiritual realization before being forcefully dragged away to meet death. Hare Krishna Mataji. It's done.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Ritu Mataji, for reading the purport. I'll just read the text and the translation. Text 37. Yudhishthira's tat pare sarpanam buddha pyore charastra che grahatat mami vibhavya lobharan chinmahim sanadya adharka chakram gana paryatat. Translation. Maharaj Yudhishthir was intelligent enough to understand the influence of age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home and he dressed accordingly. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. We have read both the text and the purport and the translation of both the text. So we hand over to you. Thank you for giving your time and association and making yourself available to us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I offer my respects to all the assembled devotees. All glories to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. So we're continuing to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, today's text 36 and 37. And here we're hearing Shaunaka Rishi. As we may remember, this Srimad Bhagavatam began with the sages of Naimisharanya asking questions or Shaunaka Rishi was asking Sutta Goswami to describe the pastimes and instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so the narration now is that Arjuna has come back to Hastinapur with the very sad news that Lord Krishna has departed along with his family members. As we may know, the Vedic spirituality teaches us that this material world, the material universe, it has phases, the different yugas, the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. These are different phases of time, and the living entities, the conditioned souls who have embodied in this world, whatever the planet that they're on, there is changes according to the progress of time. And on this earthly planet, these four yugas, they cycle one after the other, one after the other. During the lifetime of Lord Brahma, well, Lord Brahma has very, very, very long lifespan of trillions of years. And we cannot even begin to wrap our minds around that. It's a very long time. And within the lifetime of Lord Brahma, there are 14 manus, or governors of the universe. And during the rule of each manu, there are 28 cycle, or excuse me, 72 cycles of these yugas. So just when Lord Krishna appeared on this planet, and just when he departed, the Kali Yuga began. Each of these four yugas, one after the other, religious principles diminish. The Satya Yuga has the most mode of goodness, then less in Treta Yuga, less in Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga has the least of religious principles. Who remembers the four main religious principles? What are the four pillars of religious life? Anyone? Just like a bull stands on four legs, so religion stands on four legs.
Prabhuji, is it honesty,
Honesty or truthfulness,
truthfulness, charity,
charity, cleanliness, and mercy, and austerity. We will hear more about this soon in chapters that are coming up. But religiousness and goodness stand upon these four main principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. When any of these are disturbed, then religion goes down. When we, or if we, or if anyone, to the extent that we are not clean, not kind, not merciful, not austere, not truthful, then our goodness will go down. This is what keeps our goodness intact and solid. Just as we have these four regulative principles: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. So these four principles, they directly relate to austerity, mercy, truthfulness, and cleanliness. If we take intoxicants, we lose the ability to control ourselves. We lose the ability for discipline, self-discipline. We cannot practice austerity. We will act whimsically. So intoxication breaks the principle of austerity. And illicit sex outside of marriage and excessively ruins cleanliness of mind. When we gamble, when we take risks to earn money, because gambling includes that. It means taking risk, and then our mind is in anxiety, and perhaps we're risking more money than we can afford to risk, and our mind becomes disturbed. And also we have, when we are risking money, then we have a tendency to lie in order to not to lose money. So gambling destroys truthfulness. And meat eating, of naturally, it destroys the quality of kindness or mercy. In order to uh, kill an animal, we must make our heart hard. And if our heart is hard, it's not something that we can turn off and on like a light switch. If we are repeatedly engaged in making our mind insensitive to the feelings of animals, then we will be insensitive to other things too. So these four principles, they are kept in place by the four regulative principles. Now, this is what secures our position on the path of bhakti. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is describing that just at the departure of Lord Krishna, this Kali Yuga began. And in the first purport, Prabhupada says, the influence of Kali can be enforced only upon those who are not fully developed in God consciousness. So that's what we were just talking about. Being fully developed means we are actually practicing the principles. And then Srila Prabhupada says one can neutralize the effects of Kali by keeping oneself fully under the supreme care of the personality of Godhead. Just like when we have some disease, or if there's a danger of disease, we take the advice of doctors. And they advise us, take these medicines, follow this diet, and you will minimize the possibility of contracting this disease. Or you will become cured of the illness that you may have. So we put ourselves under the care of a doctor. The doctor does not help us by some magic, you know. We don't go, the doctor doesn't say some kind of magic spell, looks at us with some kind of special look and we're protected. It doesn't work like that. The protection of the doctor is a very real, practical thing. The doctor says, do A, do B, do C, and you'll be okay. And it's the same thing with Krishna. And it's the same thing with the spiritual master. They give us very real, practical instructions. And if we do them, we will be protected. Of course, there is mystical, spiritual, magical help of Krishna. But we should not lean on that too much. God helps those who help themselves. Srila Prabhupada would say regularly, Krishna or God does not bless anyone whimsically. Like sometimes people say, oh, this family is blessed. They have such good luck. They have, everyone has a good job. God has blessed them. As if Krishna woke up one morning and just, oh, let me bless this family. But it doesn't work like that. It actually does not work like that. Of course, everything is the blessing of Krishna, but everyone has to work. Everyone has to do the things that will help them to be lucky. Everyone has to do the things to protect themselves from disease. And then we get the blessings of God. Just like the blessings of a doctor. Anyone can have the blessings of a doctor. It just means that we have to follow their instructions. It's not a very difficult thing. So Srila Prabhupada said, my blessings are available to everyone. Just follow my instructions and you will be blessed. Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one's faith in Krishna and understanding of Krishna will become solidified. So sometimes we ask ourselves, well, how can I become more strong? How can I become more enthusiastic? So that's what we do. It's a practical thing. So Srila Prabhupada goes on to say that the Lord, however, left this earthly planet in his own transcendental body And as soon as he left, the symptoms of the Kali Yuga, as were envisioned by Maharaj Yudhisthira, began to manifest. Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport saying, as we have already explained, the Lord left our sight, just as when the sun sets, it is out of our sight. So that's something we all have experience with. It looks like the sun is gone at night, but of course it's not. It comes, we see it again in the morning, but it looks like it's out of our sight. So Krishna is never out of our sight. It may seem like that, but it just seems like that. Krishna is always present in our heart, and he is manifested in different incarnations on other planets and in other universes. That's a very amazing meditation. Here we are, all of us are sitting or standing, I don't know, in our flats, and someplace, Africa or the UK or United States, wherever it may be. So, you think about this planet right now. This planet is spinning something like 1,000 miles an hour. We think if we travel 80 kilometers on the highway, oh, it is so fast, 100 kilometers an hour. But we are traveling right now 1,000 miles per hour. I don't know what that is in kilometers, maybe 1,300 kilometers an hour or something. And the earth is spinning. And this earth is traveling around the sun at something like 66,000 miles an hour. Sometimes people think about going to some amusement place and they go on these different rides, the roller coaster. They go very fast. So we are already on a very amazing ride. This earth is traveling very fast around the sun. And then all these planets, the sun, the earth, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all the different planets in the solar system, they're traveling all together something like 100,000 miles per hour. And these planets, this sun, in the earth is just a speck, is just a handful of planets out of millions of planets, and millions of universes, So this existence is so vast, and we are very tiny creatures. So any questions about that purport and the verse, text 36? The text again, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from that very day, Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with a poor fund of knowledge. So, text 37. Maharaj Yudhisthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, and home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home, and he dressed accordingly. Srila Prabhupada describes the symptoms of this age. The symptoms are avarice, which means greed, falsehood, diplomacy, cheating, nepotism, violence, and all such things. And no one can imagine what is going to happen gradually with the further increase of the influence of Kali until the day of annihilation. So this Kali Yuga, it lasts 427,000 years. We are only something 5,500 years into it. So there's a long time to go. And already all of us experience the greed and the violence, the lack of truthfulness, the lack of kindness all around us. So this is the age of Kali. So Srila Prabhupada says, we have already come to know that the influence of the age of Kali is meant for godless, so-called civilized man. Those who are under the protection of the Lord have nothing to fear from this horrible age. So as Lord Krishna says, what is that verse from the 18th chapter? Does anyone remember that famous verse about surrender in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Anyone know the Sanskrit or the English?
Prabhuji, was it abandon all the religion and surrender unto me?
Yes.
1866.
Sarvadhamam priyaja mamekam shaladam praja aham tvam sava papebhyo moksha shami masuja. Lord Krishna finally declares that, O Arjuna, you surrender unto me fully, abandon all other forms of religion, and in this way I will protect you from the reactions of your sinful activities, and you will come to me. So this idea of taking shelter and surrender, just like, again, we go to a doctor and we have some difficulty, and we say, oh, I surrender unto you. And then we go home. So surrender isn't like that. Surrender means that we are going to take the direction of who we surrender to. We take shelter. You please guide me what to do. So in this way, we come to Lord Krishna, and we don't just in some sentimental way say that I have given my heart to you. I have accepted Jesus in my heart. I have accepted Krishna in my heart. But actually, the fact is that is a devotional principle and very essential. But in order to get the complete mercy of Krishna, we do not just give our heart or say something, but we follow Krishna's instructions. We study Bhagavad Gita and we learn how to become free of suffering. Manmana Baba Mad Bhakto Majidi Mam Namaskaru. Lord Krishna says at the end of the 9th chapter, always think of me, become my devotee, bow down to me, worship me. And in this way, you will come to me. I promise you this. So this is what Krishna wants. Manmana Baba Mad Bhakto. What does God want? That we become his devotee, that we worship him, that we bow down to him, and we dedicate our life to him. This is what Krishna wants. And why does Krishna want that? Is Krishna on some power trip? Is Krishna like some manager of a company that he's or she, they enjoy being in charge of so many employees, telling them what to do? Sometimes supervisors can be very nasty and they're on some power trip and they just tell the employees, no, you do this, no, you do that, because they feel powerful by doing that. But Krishna, he is not on a power trip. He just wants what any father wants, which is the happiness of his children. And our happiness is to live within the family of Krishna in peace, not as compared to being rebellious and making believe that there isn't Krishna. So that's what Kali Yuga means. They go together. That to the extent that we deny the existence of Krishna, automatically we don't have to do anything else. We will become involved in sinful activities. And to the extent that we acknowledge Krishna's existence, then we will become free of sinful activities. We can't hope to be in, to turn the lights out in the room and then we're going to have light. That's a ridiculous idea, that I will turn off the lights and somehow there will be light. It's just almost insanity. So God consciousness, spiritual consciousness means to be in light and to have purity and to deny who we are and to deny Krishna means to put ourselves in darkness. As the spiritual magazine says, Godhead is light and nescience is darkness. So being free, so this age of Kali means less and less God consciousness, and then automatically there is more greed, more violence, more cheating, more untruthfulness. So Srila Prabhupada goes on to say that Maharaj Yudhisthira, who was understanding all this, there was no necessity for him to be afraid of the age of Kali, but he preferred to retire from active household life and prepare himself to go home back to Godhead. It's just like when we are traveling on the train and we are 2 stops away. We begin to gather our things, we close our computer, and we pack up and get ready to get off the train because it is going to stop. So a sane person is aware of what's happening in the future and prepares themselves. And Maharaj Yudhisthira, as Srila Prabhupada writes, the Pandavas are eternal companions of the Lord, and therefore they are more interested in the company of the Lord than anything else. Besides that, being an ideal king, Maharaj Yudhisthira wanted to retire just to set an example for others. As soon as there's some young fellow to look after the household affairs, one should at once retire from family life to uplift oneself to spiritual realization. So this is the ideal of human life, that not just at the end of life, but always there is awareness, as Prahlad Maharaj advised his classmates, Kamara Acharet Pragyo, that all of you, all of us, should be self-realized, pragya, kamara, and komara. It means in childhood, from the very tender age of 5 years old, childhood, we should we should learn, we should be educated. What is the goal of life? How this material world is not our home, and how we can go home back to Godhead. So human life, it generally unfolds that we're in school in the first part, and we are married for many years. And as we get older, the children are moving out or moved out, and our life is advancing closer and closer towards the end, towards the last train stop. Now, someone may ask that, well, what about women? This is talking about so much about men, that they should retire from household life. Why isn't it speaking about women? So in reply, the understanding is everyone. We are all part of Krishna, and everyone should prepare for going home back to Godhead. Long ago, hundreds of years ago, it could be said that back in the time, in the Vedic culture, when it was very strong, men were more men and women were more women. Meaning that because the age of Kali had not progressed as much as it has now, everyone, both men and women, had more mental strength, more intellectual strength, more physical strength in general. And it was the responsibility of a man to be devoted to Krishna, especially, so that his wife could share the benefits. It is told in the Vedic scriptures by Krishna that a wife shares the pious activities of the husband. And if he becomes a pure devotee and goes home back to Godhead, she automatically does. So this is very good opportunity. And not to go too deep into it, but the fact of the matter is the way Krishna has arranged this existence, uh, assuming a man is of good character, uh, they are generally uh, better able to be renounced and to prepare to go home back to Godhead than the woman class. Therefore, it was spoken about more, emphasized more, that it is the responsibility of a man, whether he leaves home or doesn't leave home, uh, to be very, very serious uh, about preparing to go back to Krishna. As Srila Prabhupada says, retired old gentlemen should take lessons and leave home for spiritual realization before being forcibly dragged away to meet death. Uh, so this it's not the most happy thing to think about. Not that it happens very much uh, nowadays, but the idea that a man would leave home and what woman would like that? That her husband goes away. But in this Vedic culture, uh, uh, such a person who had such bravery and such strong willpower, who was able to do benefit to both himself and the family by being so dedicated to Krishna, is a very wonderful, wonderful thing, in fact. Although temporarily it may be sad, even Mother Sachi was very sad when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. But at the same time, uh, it could be appreciated that this is a very, very wonderful, noble, glorious thing uh, to be fully renounced and dedicate oneself fully to spiritual Krishna consciousness. Now, it is said in the age of Kali that actually sannyas is forbidden. And it is something that is not recommended unless one is very, very qualified. And therefore, we see in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, uh, there were not many sannyasis, but rather most of his intimate associates and followers were in household life. This is one of the blessings of bhakti, yoga, as compared to other types of yoga. Because this bhakti yoga, it is vairagya vidya, vairagya vidya. It is based upon renunciation and understanding that I am the servant of Krishna. And we can serve Krishna anywhere and everywhere. And if we, whoever we are, whether man or woman, if we are fully engaged in the service of Krishna, then we are on the transcendental plane of existence, whether we are in household life or outside of household life. In the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that renunciation means to renounce the fruits of our activities. Renunciation means to dedicate ourselves to the service of Krishna. It is a matter of consciousness. So therefore, as Srila Prabhupada explained in the previous purport, the devotees of Krishna actually do not have too much to be afraid of for this Kali Yuga because of their devotion. Of course, it depends upon our true devotion. I mean, it depends upon our actually, factually, really being devoted to Krishna, not just saying it or having some dressing like a devotee or it looks like we're a devotee, but to the extent that we are truly in our heart engaged in the service of Krishna, in the service of our spiritual master, then we are fully on the transcendental platform. Mam chayo vyabhacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport that another reason that Maharaj Yudhishthira left home was to set an example. He could have not done that, but to set an example for others. That was another reason that he left home. And the fact of the matter is, when there is less to think about, when there's less material affairs to have to think about, then it is easier to just think about Krishna. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So in essence, the less materialistic you are, the more spiritually you will be inclined to be.
Or there will be more opportunity. Yeah, if we don't have to think so much about earning an income and taking care of so many different people, then naturally it's easier to fully engage in the 9 practices of devotional service. So sometimes people ask, well, I'm in school, it's so difficult. Yes, it's going to be difficult. There's no way to get around it. For some 4 or 5 years, you may not be able to have the best sadhana. What can you do? You do the best you can. Same thing in household life. Oh, I'm married. It's so many challenges. Yes, that's because of our past activities. We are entangled, and we have to tolerate. We have to tolerate and do the best we can. One other thing on that note is that in Vedic culture, always, no one should leave home, leaving the family on the excuse of spirituality. Oh, it's too difficult. I'm going to Vrindavan. I'm going to give up my job. I'm going to give up my family. That is Maya. That is such bad Maya. It's nice that we want to be more Krishna conscious, but it is our duty. It is our service to Krishna to do what we have to do. That's we see. The thing is, we can't jump over the beginning of Bhagavad Gita is matra spashasta kantaya shitoshna shukadukkada. One must learn to tolerate the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress. And Lord Krishna explains in the next verse that one who can do that is eligible for liberation. Someone who can't tolerate difficulty is not going to be eligible for liberation. It doesn't matter what we're thinking. Because how could we, if we can't tolerate going to work every day and looking after our family, how are we going to think of Krishna at the time of death? That's usually a rather difficult time. And if we can't put up with family life, so that is why the Vedic culture, it is a planned sequence so that people can become genuinely, really spiritually advanced. It's not spiritual advancement to cry for Krishna, and we can't tolerate some difficulty. And that's just sentiment. It's a nice sentiment, but it's sentimental. It's really sentimental. This is bhakti yoga. But that doesn't mean that somehow we can skip the difficult practice. It is in our best. So therefore, household life, or even we're going to school or just living in this world, doing our duty is the training camp for deep spirituality. to put it simply. So therefore, a man, if he wanted to leave home, would make sure that his wife was completely provided for financially. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada says that when there is some young fellow to look after the family, so ideally, at least in Vedic culture, even now in some cultures, the children are so devoted to the parents and devoted to the mother, and that they will do anything or would do anything to provide for them. So it's not that the man, it's not, the idea is not the man should just walk away some evening and the whole household is in a lurch, what to do. No. Actually, Srila Prabhupada explains it would be probably not by happy agreement, but there would be discussion that I am now going to renounce and prepare for spiritual realization, and these are the arrangements, and then he would go. Any other questions or discussion?
Hare Krishna. Are there any other questions or discussions? This. Prabhuji, I think there are no more questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna
yes.
Prabhuji. I just wanted to understand this. Men were more men and women were more women meaning.
Well, as the age of Kali progresses, humans lose more and more of their mental, intellectual, and physical power in general. They become more weak-minded, as we see, especially in the past 30, 40 years. There are many more women executives, and it's not because they were not qualified before, but the men have become less qualified. That's my understanding. Yes, the equality, the men have become weaker, and there's many examples of that in general. It wasn't like that long ago, because there are different species, the male form and the female form. They're different species, especially in the Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga. In general, the men were stronger leaders. Now there's so many more women leaders. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just indicates that
Is that okay, Ritu Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Oh, yeah, understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for that clarification. Any more questions or comments or any clarifications? Okay, if there are no more questions, so yes, Vishaka Mataji.
Yes, it's just I just want a view or opinion. We understand, when at late age people now renounce, like nowadays they don't renounce and go to the forest, but they just renounce internally. But what's the view about when youngsters like renounces, they are young, like I understand if they are there for certain period in the temple as brahmachari or some, but they renounce and then for some reason wants to go back to living like a grahastha. So what's your view? Because I find it like, sometimes youngsters renounce just because there's too much on board for them, so many responsibilities come and they renounce. Is that a true renunciation? What's the view, Prabhu? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we were talking about that a little bit, that everyone in general should live out their life in the usual way and practice genuine and follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita daily. Uh, it's a rare person, male or female, who could live singly, starting early in life. And it's possible, but it's not to be encouraged. And we see within ISKCON, within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, at least for people who are married, or it is sannyas is not allowed until one is later in life, after the age of 50, because it is understood that as a rule, it doesn't work out. Rather, instead of, sometimes I have heard several times, young men being pressurized that, oh, you give up everything, leave your family, move in the temple uh, in a permanent way, uh, which probably is not the right thing for most young men, maybe some, but rather uh, the proper guidance is to carry out your life duties, you know, finish school, because you're going to be married. And if you're going to be married, you have to have some job. You at least get vocational training and prepare for the future, or live in the temple for a few years, something. Um, but not pressurized that, oh, now this is it. You're going to be renounced forever. Not something that's usually the right direction.
Thank you for clarification. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, any other questions, comments, clarifications?
Even of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna instructs us, I think, in the third chapter, that better, well, as Srila Prabhupada puts it, better sincere sweeper in the street than an imposter, someone who looks like they're renounced, but God knows what they're doing when we're not looking. Better just be who you are, and cultivate devotion, really cultivate, and that's much better, much better.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's just the reason I'm asking this is this is my experience. Actually, I have a nephew whom I introduced to Hare Krishna movement, and that was nice, and he took it all wholeheartedly. But and he's not young; he is in his late 40s. But and then he decided to join the ashram, which was fine. And then he decided to just live in the ashram. But however, he has an elderly mom who is 80 plus and who needs to be cared because she suffers from dementia. Now, I have always, I don't know, I may be wrong. Sometimes I've stopped asking him. I said, look, I don't think so. You're doing the right thing. You should be going home and be looking after your mom rather than being in the temple. And he says, actually, my duty is to progress in spiritual life. And Krishna will take care. And there's always, and then at one point I was sort of very sort of hard on him, but then I felt, am I giving him a wrong advice? Maybe he's doing the right thing. So what would you suggest on that point?
Well, of course, I don't know him directly, and I don't know the whole situation. But again, everyone has to do their human duties, and practice spiritual life to their best ability. No one can be abandoned in the name of surrendering to Krishna. If someone needs to be taken care of truly, then they need to be taken care of. That's just of course. I mean, who's looking after her? Someone is looking after her.
His sister is looking after, but so it's all on his sister, because he doesn't have anybody who else can look after his mom. So the whole
Oh, I
burden is
see.
going on his sister, which I
Yeah,
feel is not right. Like, it should be shared. He should be doing his share. And I have told him, do this, you can continue what you are doing spiritually while being
yeah,
with at home. But
sure. Yeah.
doesn't seem to. He says, my temple authority has advised me I should continue with. I don't know
Yeah.
how true that is, anyways. Yeah.
Well, I suppose, who can force him? I mean, he has to take the choice. But if we know someone who does have a choice before they do make a choice, uh, just as we're discussing, that
Mhm.
there's no obstacle to being devoted to Krishna. It may not be exactly this completely free, uh, but that may be something that we have to wait for, like anything else. To be patient. The time will come.
Mhm. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishika Mataji. Any other questions, comments, clarifications?
Even Krishna, Lord Krishna chastised Arjuna for trying to come up with an excuse to avoid the war. Srila Prabhupada fighting. Srila Prabhupada explained that actually, Arjuna's duty was to participate in this difficult battle. And it was who wants to kill their relatives? I mean, who wants to do that? I would look for an excuse. And Arjuna, so Krishna said, you're looking for an excuse, really, and you should give this up. And he said the same thing. Matra spaushasti kantaya. That was the exact verse. That you're speaking so many learned things and it sounds very nice, but you're abandoning your duty. You just have to tolerate it. And that will make you really advanced. That is advancement, so that no matter what kind of pain or pleasure, your mind isn't changed. That is transcendental. That's what transcendental, a large part of it, means. And we can't achieve that by some magic. It's just like if we want to lose weight, we can't avoid exercising and changing our diet. It just won't work. There's no magic pill. So yeah. So this is serious spirituality. So you stay home and you tolerate and you become strong in your mind, you become strong in your soul. And when Krishna thinks the time is right, he'll let you have more full freedom. But what will you do with that full freedom if you're not really solid inside? You're actually like some soft candy inside. And that's why one of the main reasons that there are uh, scandalous things that happen. Some, oh, well, how did this advanced spiritual person do this horrible thing? And sometimes in holy places or anywhere, there are spiritual people who do uh, obscene things because they're not strong inside or strong enough. They didn't do the first part enough. You have to do the 1, 2, 3 ABCs, then you do the EFGs, right? So yeah. So that's why we don't move too fast to read about Radha and Krishna's pastimes and imagine ourselves loving Krishna too much. We want to do the ABCs first. Then, when we come to that stage, we'll be very strong. We'll be very solid. We won't do some crazy thing that upsets everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Very valid point. Thanks. Now we know why people do things which are not supposed to when they're spiritually advanced, because they may have given up immature, they've done things without the proper understanding. They are just, yes, I understand.
Without it's just like if you try and build a house and then the foundation is weak. The house may look very good. It may look really good, but it's on a shaky foundation, right? And then people say, what happened to that flat? It fell down. Well, the foundation was not good. So we spend 10, 15, 20 years living usual kind of human life, actually following Bhagavad Gita, and we become strong in our mind, strong in our soul.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for that clarification, and Vishaka Mataji for that question. Any more question or comments? We've exhausted our time actually. So I think we can thank Prabhuji for today's class. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for being available for us every Sundays. And in spite of you having challenges, you always join us and help us with clarification of our doubts. So let us all unmute and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once in glorification of Prabhuji. Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Namo
namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
His Grace Dina Sharana Prabhuji ki, Jai.
Jai.
Thank you for your company.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I wish everyone well.
Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the lovely class.